Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out the GitGud Course. Instead of just understanding concepts, you'll learn how to implement them directly into your driving. What makes it effective is the approach and practical drills. Together, we're gonna focus on breaking down those complex concepts into small digestible bits that are simple to understand. Everything from the course was tested and refined during the years in coaching sessions, so what I ended up with was the ones that I saw were the most effective. Let's elevate your racing skills together. Now for the track guide. Before starting, if you enjoyed this content, giving it a like and a subscribe, it's a free way to support it as I can produce more content like this to more sim racers. Now going into the track guide itself, for turn 1, my reference for braking is past this dirt band around here, and I'm looking more towards the sand part on the left side of the track near the grass. So around this point right here, I want to apply the brakes. So I'm braking around here at the end of the sand. So if you're looking on the left side, right now you see this sand. Whenever you don't see it anymore, even in this little triangle on the left side, so whenever it starts disappearing, like right now, you can apply the brakes. You can also use this white line in front of the car, but actually it's a red line. This line in front of the tarmac, but it's a bit harder to see. So this can be like a secondary reference, like if you will brake past this line or at this line, it will be too late. So having more references certainly help, at least for the race. What you're trying to do in this corner is to set up a good exit while not sacrificing time on entry. So I'm braking hard and I'm holding the pressure, like I'm picking 90%, and I'm still holding it 92, 92. I want to slow down the car by braking late, but at the same time I want to get as close as I can to this wall on the right side. So while turning into the corner in first gear, I'm bleeding the brakes and I'm asking for more rotation, and the car will be oversteery at this point because you're going from a higher elevation to a lower elevation, so the initial travel will be with the car balanced a bit towards oversteery, so I'm counter steering a bit while traveling through the apex. But the moment that you're gonna reach these compression zones near the curb, you will have a lot of grip, and you have to take advantage of it by pushing the throttle super aggressively. So right now I'm going close to this, and now look how quickly I build up the throttle. It's already 50%, but on the exit of this corner, when we go off camber, we will lose the grip. So the grip level changes 3 times here. One on entry, the first time is on entry, the car will be a bit oversteery. The second time is at the apex, you have a lot more grip, you can go aggressive on throttle. And the third time is here on the exit, because you will lose the grip. And you have to modulate. Look what I'm doing, 60%, 50, 50, 60. And now after I get past the apex and past that elevation change, now I'm fully committing. But if there's one thing that's important here, is getting closer to the wall and initially being very aggressive with the throttle without dropping it. You see here I go mostly upwards. I don't drop it. I don't go spike it 100 and then drop and picking it up again. You want a good exit out of this corner. You want to think that once you hit the throttle, you won't let go of it. You will squeeze it maybe up until you get past that point in which the grip level fades away, and then you will continue to push it aggressively. That's how you get a good exit after turn 1, and it's probably one of the most important corners of the track since it leads to this huge straight. One small thing that I want to mention here in Lecombe, you want to upshift to 5th gear later than you think. So if you will upshift early here when the first rev limiter hits for the first time, then you will lose like 003, 004 into the big straight. This is what I was doing in the previous lap. So delay your upshift and look what's gonna happen right now. So look at the delta. Now I'm starting to gain. I gained 001, 002, and let's see if I can gain here 003. So you see, probably I will gain 002 more by the end of the straight, but it's free lap time. You just have to upshift to 5th gear a bit later before going into Rouge and Radion. Now for Lecombe, my reference for braking is the middle of the curb on the left side. So here I try to gauge what the middle will be here, and I'm trying to use all the track first, so having the left tires all the way to the grass and the dirt on the left side. and around here I'm applying the brakes. So it's not a very precise braking point, but you can get away with it, and you can modulate your speed with the brakes while going into the throttle. So middle of the curb, quite aggressive initially, 80%, but you see it's a bit softer than turn 1, because this is still a low to medium speed corner. You can mount those curves and carry a lot more speed. We will only go to third gear here. So in third gear, bleeding the brakes, super important to cut this curb like this. The more you cut, the better it's gonna be. And the moment that you touch this curb, you will push the throttle aggressively. The goal will be to have in between those two close to 100% throttle. I was not able to do that because I didn't cut enough on entry. So if you will cut a bit more, you see that you will have more space here to push the throttle. I'm doing a lift while changing directions to get some front end pointing, but I don't think you need to lift all the way to 0. I think you can lift to 20% and the car will still point. So I think you can get a bit more out of this sequence of corners by first of all focusing on the exit of the first one to get closer to 100% throttle, and for the second one, before you're preparing it, like the one that I'm wearing right now, to avoid dropping it to 0% like here, keep it to 10%, even 5%. It's gonna give you a better medium speed through the corner. And I think if you will hit more initially with the throttle, so let's say instead of hitting 80% what I did here, you go to 95, you lifting the throttle, you will move that weight on the front tires and you don't have to go over the board and drop it to 0, because dropping it to 10%, let's say, will still give you that front end that I'm getting here by dropping it to 0, just because I didn't reach that 90% in the first place. So you can do that. Definitely you don't want to have the car all the way on the right side. Here you want to have the car more towards the center, so you can see I could have been just a bit more towards the center, but just a few centimeters more, not a lot, because you want this next corner to be flat. This is the corner that matters, and for that I'm bringing the car all the way to here. On the left side you can barely hit this curb and the car will still be stable at turn in, and you want to turn in late apexing, mounting a bit this curb without dropping the throttle, so use this curb like this and it won't be an off track. And for the next corner I'll brake diagonally past the curb, so I won't brake at the beginning of the curb. I want to go 1 meter later and then brake, and I will go diagonally towards the apex. So instead of going in a straight line like this, like I'm showing with the mouse, I'm instead going like this, diagonally. This is gonna be a double apex corner, and the earlier you're gonna get the first apex, the better it's gonna be. So braking around here initially, downshifting to second gear, hitting our first mark, then letting the car roll out a bit wider, then hitting here our second apex. And this correction was just because I was a bit rushed into pressing it the first time. So ideally you won't see this drop, you will see just going up, but I carried a lot of speed though, so honestly I think I lost half a tenth with this mistake, but it's not the end of the world if you still carry the speed. It's a lot better to have the speed than just going super slow just to have a good line. So most of the time on average this is gonna be quicker. Now for the no-name corner we're gonna reposition, and the moment that we arrive here with the steering wheel almost straight, we're just gonna dab the brakes. So the braking point is the moment that we have the car straighten up for the corner. I'm gonna turn and brake at the same time, barely hitting the brakes, 9% pressure, trail braking up until you see that you're getting the rotation, and then putting the throttle aggressively like this, because you can use all this space and it's gonna make a lot of lap time. For the next corner we're gonna use fourth gear, so even though the rev limiter is hitting, don't go to fifth. You will lose some traction out of it whenever you're gonna downshift. So instead, stay in fourth, braking at this traffic lights on the right side. So the moment I'm barely seeing it here, the green light, I'm applying the brakes. I'm not looking at the green light, so I'm looking more towards the apex, but with my side vision, I'm seeing it and barely touching the brakes. In my mind, it's maybe 15%, so it's better here to brake softer than brake harder, because this is a high-speed corner. The way that we're gonna gain time here is by not overslowing the car. So start with braking less, see if the car understeers on exit and you get the off track, and then progressively bump it up. Now holding and trailing up until we hit the curb now. Then initially we'll be super aggressive on the throttle, we'll let the car go wide, and here you don't have to force too much the steering wheel. I'm actually fighting to steer as less as I can and to have light hands, so that I won't scrub speed on this downhill part. I let the car go where the car wants to go. So if your car wants to go a bit more on the right, let it go. Don't overforce some steering angle, because we will just scrub some speed and we'll overheat the tires. The next corner braking point will be past the curb, so I'm mounting it completely like this, with the left tires being aligned all the way to the grass. And past the curb I'm braking hard and downshifting to third gear. The car will feel a bit oversteery. What's important here is to delay your throttle application. I think this was a bit too early, so I should have braked a bit later, just blink of an eye later, and I wanted ideally here to be on throttle. So it's better in this corner to be more on the brakes than being earlier on throttle, because if you will be earlier on throttle, it will push you wide for the next corner, and the next corner really matters a bit more than this part. So you can sacrifice this part by being slower here, by not going that aggressive on throttle, instead staying on the brakes. To achieve this, you can either brake a bit later than what I did, or brake a bit softer. Either of those will work. My style is mostly towards inclined braking softer, because this also helps with tire temp. So in an ideal lap, without this mistake, this would have been still trailing up until this point and then pushing the throttle, because this is gonna, instead you'll be a bit more on the right side. So here the consequence will be this bigger drop in throttle. So you will notice that if you prepare it just a bit better, this drop will be, it will still be to 0% throttle or close to zero, but this gap between off throttle and on throttle will be a bit shorter. So you will carry a bit more speed. Super important to hit the tire on this part of the curve. The curve has a bit of elevation on it, so you have to hit it right all the way up here, and you will use all this track here on the exit. Now the ref limiter is gonna hit, stay in third gear, don't go to fourth. You'll have better traction and it will be a lot easier to take the next corner if you don't downshift from fourth to third. So I'm staying in third gear, I'm hitting the rev limiter, I'm using this dirt band around here, and I'm braking earlier here. It's quite an early braking point. Maybe you can gain 1/10 and a half more if you brake a bit later and you still manage the balance, but if you miss it, you will lose a lot of lap time on the exit. So it's a high risk, low reward, just because this corner leads to a big straight. In the race or in qualifying, I would highly brake earlier, like what I did here, to avoid risking a good lap. So I'm already braking, and in third gear I'm trailing up until this point where I go on throttle 0-100. You see, this is how you get a good exit here. This straight right here, brake, and then immediately 0-100. This is gonna give you that exit that you want, because this is a huge straight right now. So even though we brake a bit earlier and we give up some time on entry, I think it's gonna be on average a lot more quicker if we start with the exit in mind. And now going into the last corner. The last corner, it's just one simple thing that you probably don't see a lot of drivers doing, is going diagonally. From this point onwards, I won't push the car to the left side. I will travel a longer distance if I go on the left and then brake in a straight line, supposed to just going diagonally and braking diagonally. So I'm keeping the car on the right end of the track, and now I'm aligning it so I can point to the curb. And whenever I'm seeing these curves and I'm close to it, like right now, I'm applying the brakes, and notice that I went from the right side and I'm coming back to the left side. And while braking, I'm still using this part of the track to open up. Super important in this corner, hold the brakes, hold the pressure of the brakes. The common mistake here is to brake hard, but then dip it very quickly. So a spike on the brakes. No, this should look more like a rectangle or like a boxy type of shape, like still holding, you see, and now you're gonna drop. So it has to be boxy, because you really want to make sure you're using the most of the brakes in this corner, in which you're basically coming with your top speed, and this is a low speed corner. So holding the brakes, I'm apexing around this part of the curve right here, so I want to hit it. I'm trail braking and then pushing the throttle. Super important to give a blimp of 100% throttle in between those two and bring the car more towards the right side to open up. This is an important corner. I really want to get close to the red sausage curve, because otherwise you will lose on the exit, since the exit has a decent straight. So pushing the car to the right side, giving it close to 100, now dropping the throttle while turning so get the front end pointing, and now putting the throttle again 0-100, nice and steady. And in short, that's a track guide around Spa with the GR86. I highly encourage you to race this week. It's gonna be a blast, there's gonna be a lot of battles, and if you want to improve at a quicker pace, you can check my sim racing course, it's in the video description and it has a lot of value. See you on the next time. Bye bye.